Hello everyone, Ethersong here, and today Blue Protocol had a big announcement. They will be ending service for the game on January 18th next year. Now, it actually is not too surprising for most people in Japan, but still somewhat sad to see due to how much people had been wanting a successful anime MMO. It was even highly anticipated in Japan, launching with over 200,000 concurrent players, but those players did not stick around, and Blue Protocol was noted as a massive financial failure by Bandai Namco in their financial report. Personally, there were many things about the game that I enjoyed. I liked the graphics, the world, the music, the aesthetics of everything, but there were also many bad things about the game. First off, a lack of content. It launched with a lot of content that was lacking, and I think it was around 8 years in development. People were left kind of scratching their heads like they spent so much time. Why is there only this much content? And also, if you look back on the closed beta test, there were a lot of problems with the game at that point as well. There were things that left people questioning, do the developers know what they're doing? Do they know how to make a enjoyable experience? And a lot of those problems seem to be linked to lack of experience with server programming, where they had to redo their whole server back end, which caused them to spend another 2 years reworking the game. But I guess those main server issues were fixed for the most part. Other gameplay elements were also, problematic. So between the lack of content and the gameplay itself not being the best, I think that caused a lot of people to leave. For me personally, it felt like a lot of the classes were not too interesting, I guess. So as an action game, you're expecting a little bit more action elements, but for example, you have the Spellweaver class, which is this obscure mage kind of class, but all of its spells rooted in place basically, and you had to stay in place to charge up your basically mana to use skills, compared to something like Guild Wars 2 Elementalist, where you can move around a lot more, and it's a lot more, just engaging, enjoyable to do all this movement along with your spells. Feels like comparably Guild Wars 2, while not even really being an action game, a full action game, it has tab targeting, but it feels like more of an action game than Blue Protocol, which is supposed to be an action game. Beyond that, boss fights were not the most interesting as well. Unique monsters were just larger versions of normal monsters with lots of health, and so these were the monsters that appeared in field areas, and everyone would go to fight them, but it's just basically a big sack of health, right? Along with raids as well. Here, basically, you had these large, there's two different raids. You had a large, demi-dragon, big dragon type of monster. And then there was a sandworm, but these really weren't too difficult. So everyone just kind of whacked on the raid boss until it died. And there wasn't really much thinking involved with it. There really wasn't too much mechanics involved with it as well. And that goes along with the end of dungeon bosses. All of them were pretty much just big enemies that didn't really have any interesting mechanics. The only mechanics that were really into the game for these bosses throughout it were shockwaves. They send out shockwaves along the ground that you'd have to hop over, and I really wish there was more to it. Once again, looking at Guild Wars 2, where you have these massive world bosses that actually require some coordination to take down, where you would have to do certain objectives, and if you don't do those, you can actually fail the boss pretty easily. So I feel like compared to Guild Wars 2, this game was lacking in a lot of areas when it came to combat and boss design and just, class design all around. Beyond that, I felt like the party gameplay itself was also not the best. And in addition, with the in-game itself, the in-game loop didn't feel that great as well. So when you get to the core gameplay elements of the game, which really matter, it seems like the developers were not able to grasp that fun factor that players will want from a game like this that keeps them playing. Kind of like the addictive in-game loop or something like that. And just beyond that, gearing was not really that interesting. And then cosmetic progression was locked behind a greedy gacha system where they had crazy limits. I bet at the beginning they didn't even like guarantee you would get like a piece of clothing you want. I think it would involve like a super lot of money. You'd have to spend like $300 or so to guarantee like an S piece of clothing, and then you couldn't even like choose what you would get, so it would still be like random within like that S group. So it's just the monetization was pretty over the top. And then there was also, I guess, other things like various other problems, including this like tedious questing system. You had like this adventure board. You'd have to choose like what things you want to put active, and things that aren't active don't progress. So you would kind of have to do a bunch of micromanagement. And this probably also comes back to maybe the developers' lack of server experience. They talked about server issues and server requests and things like that. So I don't know. It just seems like perhaps the developers didn't have enough experience with developing an online game like this. And beyond that, there was also a number of, feels like, inconveniences that were added to the game that weren't necessary, perhaps for more monetization items to be added in. So it seems like in a lot of areas they're trying to push monetization too much. That felt like it impacted the game as well. So beyond just, gameplay having issues, it feels like the game, core parts of the game itself were also impacted by monetization. As such, all in all, the end of Blue Protocol was something most people in Japan were kind of expecting. No one was really super surprised that this was happening, and some people on Japanese forums were even joking that it did good to last until the end of this year. In any case, I would think that many people who were interested in Blue Protocol to begin with have moved on to Chinese gacha games, and who can really blame them? The quality of games like Genshin Impact, Wuthering Waves, and even the upcoming Neverness to Everness blow Blue Protocol away. Even so, I personally would still like to see an anime-style MMORPG in the same vein as something like Sword Art Online, Dot Hack, or Shangri-La Frontier. I think there are many people who still many people that are still like me, which is why Blue Protocol was so hyped to begin with. And even though Blue Protocol failed, perhaps one of these Chinese companies will step in and make a truly great anime MMORPG in the future. All in all, I had fun with Blue Protocol while it lasted, but its end was not surprising. Let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time. Later.